Hello, humans! I think we can all agree that movies nowadays aren't nearly as well made as older movies. They tend to feel like they were made with a paint-by-numbers kit that was processed in a machine rather than made by passionate creators. And before anyone says that I'm just saying that because I grew up with them and it's nostalgia, there are plenty of movies that even back in the day I didn't like, and even ones that I have nostalgia for that I don't think are very good now. There's rarely a film that I'm excited to see these days. While there are occasional exceptions like the Barbie movie, most films nowadays tend to make me feel just hollow. So I couldn't be happier that K-pop Demon Hunters actually managed to deliver. I was afraid that it wouldn't live up to my expectations, since there have been many times when people have hyped up a movie and I tend not to care much for it. But K-pop Demon Hunters actually managed to live up to the hype and then some. I know I'm late to the party here, but I'm here to talk about it. Just a warning, this video will contain spoilers, so don't say I didn't warn you, humans. Now before we begin, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and if you disagree, that's fine. Just don't be up about it. Now without any further delay, let's dive right on in. The story is about a K-pop group called Huntrix that includes Rumi, the main protagonist and lead singer, Mira, the choreographer, and Zoe, the lyricist, that are secretly demon hunters that fight off evil demons from stealing the souls of humans. Humans have souls. Their singing and love from their fans help seal the demons away in a magical barrier called the Hun Moon, and there have been many generations of hunters that have helped make the Hun Moon stronger. The demon's leader, Gima, sends a group of demons disguised as a boy band called the Saja Boys to steal the Huntrix's fans to weaken the Han Moon. So Huntrix has to compete in a battle of the bands to save the world. However, Rumi is actually half demon, but she has been forced to keep a secret from her friends and everyone else by her foster mother Celine, who was a hunter as well and worked alongside Rumi's mother. Celine and Rumi are hoping that once the barrier is closed up for good, that it will get rid of Rumi's patterns. Along the way, Rumi and the leader of the Saja Boys, Jinu, develop feelings for one another and help the other with their own struggles while also fighting. So yeah, the story on paper sounds ridiculous, but just because a story sounds ridiculous, that doesn't mean that it can't be something more amazing. Just like how something that sounds more amazing on paper doesn't mean it'll automatically be good. Wish definitely taught us that. It's in its execution that it ends up working, and this movie definitely made it work because it may be a silly concept, but it puts its all into making it a truly phenomenal story. Yes, it's silly at times, though that's also part of its charm, but it's also deep and profound in its messaging of letting yourself embrace who you are and all of your imperfections. Rumi's story of struggling to accept her demon side is similar to a lot of experiences people have. Biracial people, neurodivergent people, people of the LGBTQ+ community. It's no wonder that so many people connect with this movie because many of us have tried to hide a part of who we are in order to be accepted. Some are able to mask that side better than others, but it always manages to come to the surface eventually. And then all of the emotions that we've kept bottled up just come pouring out. The scene where Rumi finally confronts Celine just had me in absolute tears. And that's saying something because very rarely has a movie in recent years gotten me emotional like vintage Pixar or the Disney movies that I grew up with.
Why couldn't you love me? I do. All of me.
It's heartbreaking because many of us have had to deal with someone who just couldn't accept who we are, and we've had to hide it just to keep their approval. I mean, Celine should have embraced all of who Rumi was instead of trying to hide part of her, because every part of oneself is what makes them beautiful. Celine didn't know for sure if closing off the barrier would get rid of Rumi's patterns. It's similar to how parents try to quote-unquote cure their kids of their queerness or their neurodivergence, which are things that don't need to be cured or fixed in any way. Rumi's struggle is one of the biggest selling points that make this film so great. I do wish we had gone to learn how her parents came together, since her mother was a hunter and her father was a demon, as well as how they died. But that's something that can be fixed in later installments, since this obviously needs to be a whole franchise. Another core aspect is the friendship between the three girls. While Mira and Zoe aren't given as much attention as they should, though that would have been fixed with maybe adding 10 or maybe 20 minutes to the runtime, the friendship between the girls is so wholesome. Yes, Rumi has to hide a part of her and the girls turn on her, but that's only because she had been lying to them. Had she been upfront with them from the beginning, I don't doubt that they would have accepted her because she accepts them and all their faults, so why wouldn't they? The three of them are always there for each other and truly feel like a family. I've made it no secret that I'm not a fan of cringe humor, but it actually works with these girls because it serves a narrative purpose. They had to be presented as perfect for the public as K-pop stars, and and as warriors they are taught not to show their flaws. So when the girls are alone with each other, it's a form of intimacy of just getting to let loose and be weirdos because they care about and accept each other, flaws and all. It's not done as just a lazy shorthand for relatability. The pacing is pretty good, though it's not really perfect. There are things that I do wish were more developed, like giving Mira and Zoe more attention. The romance between Rumi and Gino could have been a little bit more developed, showing other demons besides Gino that were tricked and forced into the life of being a demon, because it seems like Gino hinted that there were other demons like him, but he seems to be the only one that's actually shown that way. Celine playing more of an active role rather than just being underutilized, Rumi's backstory with her parents, and going more into how the girls met. But these are things that can be fixed in sequels or a TV series, apart from the romance between Rumi and Gino, you know, since he's dead, and none of these actively hurt the film. They're just flaws that I personally notice. But I do think the romance between Rumi and Gino is really rushed, and while there is some nice chemistry, I just feel like they need to slow it down a bit before it got to the point where Rumi could actually trust him. Again, the relationship isn't bad, it's good, but it's just not great. But overall, the film is really well paced, with some great slow moments and some awesome action scenes that make this a phenomenally balanced film. One problem I do have with the story does come from some of the humor. Now don't get me wrong, this is a funny movie. However, some of the jokes feel ill-timed and get dragged out far too long.
They're so bleh. They're so no, they're I'm gonna throw up.
But overall, the story is really well constructed and feels more put together than the films Pixar has been putting out lately. Ironic, since Pixar used to be known for taking unique ideas and making them masterpieces, and now Sony beat them at their own game. As many of you are aware, I have a preference for traditional animation, and have often criticized computer animation. However, in the case of this movie, it actually looks gorgeous. While it's nowhere near the level of a traditionally animated film by a long shot, I do appreciate how it goes for a more stylized look, instead of hyper-realistic textures. I also refer to computer animation as animation trying to imitate real life, which is a failure in and of itself, since nothing can truly capture real life, hence why CGI animation ages. The movie goes for a stylized approach from the art director Amy Thompson, who is an amazing artist that previously was an art director for Raya and the Last Dragon and a character designer for Across the Spider-Verse. So that definitely explains why the designs look so phenomenal and why the characters' designs could easily come from the world of Raya and the Last Dragon, only without the hyper-realistic textures. They also took inspiration from anime, with the characters being able to make big expressions and even go for a stylized chibi look at times. This makes for a very unique looking film that feels like a much better version of Turning Red. I may not be a big fan of all of the humor, but the visual gags are always top tier. They remind me of shows that I grew up with, like Teen Titans, Pokemon, and even my favorite show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, with how the characters can look pretty, but still have super cartoony reactions. Not to mention that there are a lot of influences from Korean culture in the designs with the fantastical creatures, something that's not often portrayed in media. Not only do the characters look fantastic, their movements are absolutely phenomenal, with the fast-paced but stylized fight scenes that I'm absolutely in love with. I mean, this feels like what a CGI anime fight would look like. As much as I adore Raya and the Last Dragon and its action scenes, I wish its fight scenes looked more like this. But then again, I wish it was 2D and looked like Amy Thompson's art, because that would have been just perfect. The fight scenes are so creative and always get me pumped. Plus, the animation during the musical sequences are just so immersive and exciting. I feel like I'm in a music video, but not in a bad way like with Encanto, where the musical numbers felt so disconnected from the story. This feels like an intricate part of the movie, and the animation helps bring it to life. Also, minor note, but I love that we actually get to see what the girls look like without their makeup, and they don't just get rid of the girls' lips. Granted, that's probably because in CGI that would look weird, but it's always been a pet peeve of mine when animated women aren't drawn with lips. Not to mention the colors are absolutely gorgeous, and just truly pop in every scene. When I watch movies with my wife, if the movie is truly gorgeous, we watch in the dark because it looks even better that way and helps the film pop even more. This film is one of the few CGI movies that we actually watch in the dark because it's actually worthy of it with how gorgeous it is. I mean, look at that fire and lighting. It takes my breath away. Unlike a lot of CGI animation, it doesn't feel ashamed of how it's an animated film, and it's just embracing that it's animated. While I will still always prefer traditional animation because nothing will will ever be the sheer otherworldly beauty of it. This is truly among one of the most gorgeous looking computer animated films I've ever seen. I mean, just look at how amazing it looks. Not to mention, it has a better chance of not being dated in a few years because of how it went against the hyper-realistic style. Truly a work of art to behold. While the story and animation are stellar, that doesn't mean anything if the characters aren't engaging. Luckily, we have some pretty great characters. Not perfect, but they're still pretty great. The best of the bunch, in my opinion, is Rumi. She's hardworking, smart, ambitious, and the most serious one in the group, but can still be a dork herself. She reminds me of how Dorothy from the Golden Girls is the serious one in the group, but can still be just as wacky as the others. And given the fact that the emotional depth of the film comes from her arc of being half demon, it makes her character all the more engaging. She honestly feels like a better version of Elsa from Frozen. As I mentioned in my video of If Frozen Holds Up, Elsa's biggest flaw was that she was neither the protagonist or the antagonist, when the film would have been much better if she had been. In this movie, Rumi has a lot of similar trauma and experiences as Elsa, of having to appear perfect, hiding part of herself, putting up walls with the ones that she loves, and her self-hatred, but is actually able to shine more by being the protagonist of the film. Her struggles are so engaging, and I love how she slowly learns how to open up and accept who she is. Yeah, the acceptance of who she is at the end is kinda rushed, but it still works because the character is just so likable and engaging. Plus, it feels more developed than Elsa just suddenly realizing that love will thaw the snow. She's a layered character that is the heart of the story, not to mention that she's brought to life flawlessly by Arden Cho's performance, who, side note, is one of the most beautiful women that ever lived. Next, there's Genu, an antagonist slash anti-hero and leader of the Saja Boys. He has a tragic past where he was living in poverty 400 years ago and was offered a deal by Gima, where he would live in luxury, but he had to leave his mother and sister behind, something that he has felt guilt over ever since and ended up turning into a demon. He's doing what he's doing in the film to have these memories erased from his mind, and while he brought it on himself, his story allows for some sympathy, especially since it's clear that deep down he still has a soul. I love how he's still a playful tease. He's not just a stick in the mud like you would normally expect with this tragic character. He's actually really fun, and I love me a character with some sass. Plus, the fact that he sacrificed himself to save Rumi in the end is so tragic, but also really beautiful, especially since he doesn't come back. He's a tragic character with dimensions, but still a lot of fun to watch, even without the backstory. Not to mention that it feels more utilized than the tacked-on backstories of Disney's jerk heroes, which I have a video all about. Then there's Mira, who is unapologetically herself. She's blunt, aggressive, snarky, and will always be upfront with someone, whether they are a friend, enemy, or even a random stranger. She's considered a problem child in her very strict and conservative family, and that's definitely something I relate to. But I love that she's not presented as mean, because she still has a soft and vulnerable side to her, as well as the ability to be just as much of a dork as her friends, something that's not often seen with a character like her. Mira is basically me. The only thing keeping her from being my favorite character is that she's not given as much attention as I would like, but again, that can be fixed in later media. Zoe, on the other hand, is the opposite of Mira and clearly the most adorkable of the group, but unlike Disney's many adorkable heroines, it actually works because she's charming. She's sweet, bubbly, energetic, but also struggles with being too much of a people pleaser, though she has her limits. She grew up feeling weird for her notebooks where she wrote lyrics, and the fact that she has a bit of an identity crisis as a Korean that grew up in America. But I also love that despite being so sweet, she still has plenty of sass and feistiness to her. She's just a precious cinnamon roll that needs to be protected, and does provide some of the best comedy, especially when it comes to the visual gags. However, just like Mira, she doesn't get as much attention as I would like, but what we do get is great. The demon tiger and bird are just so much fun. Not much else to say, but I love them because they are so flippin' cute and fun, especially the demon tiger. The bird is what Hey Hey from Moana should have been. Bobby is a bit unnecessary because he doesn't really add anything to the story as the girl's manager and never even learns that they're demon hunters, but he's just so likable and wholesome that I can't help but love him. He's like a teddy bear that truly cares about his girls. The other Saja boys don't really have any personality, but they don't really need to for the kind of role they play in the film. Plus, that would be way too many characters to focus on in a movie, which is another reason why Encanto didn't really work. Unfortunately, Gima is a very dull villain. There's nothing interesting about him as a character. He's just a generic evil that doesn't do anything to make him fun or memorable, which is something old Disney had down to a science. This moment was the only time he was actually kind of entertaining.
My little soda pop. It's catchy.
But then we have the most wasted character with Celine, Rumi's foster mother and the girls' mentor figure who trained them, formed the group, tells the girls not to let their emotions get in their way, and is the reason for all of Rumi's trauma and self-hatred. With how much she has influenced these characters, you'd think she'd play a bigger role, but she doesn't. I feel like it would have worked better if Bobby wasn't in the film, and they just had her be the manager instead so that she could have a more active role in the film. Maybe they can do more with her in the sequels, but in this film, she's wasted potential. So yeah, while the characters aren't perfect, a majority of them are still great and are characters that I absolutely want to see more of in future projects because they are just so likable. Before I get into the songs themselves, there is a major flaw that I need to address when it comes to the music. The issue is that not a single one of the characters' singing voices actually matches with their speaking voices. I mean, I'm glad they didn't try to have the actors who aren't professional singers sing when they aren't up to the task, but it's really obvious that none of these singing voices belong to the actors. Once again, this is something old Disney had down to a science of making sure that the singing voices match the speaking voices when they had to get doubles for the singing. The singers all sound more amazing, but I'm always just taken out of it a little bit because none of these singing doubles actually sound anything like the speaking voices. But with that out of the way, the songs themselves are absolute bangers and one of the best parts of the film. I'm serious when I say I've been listening to these songs on repeat, and that's coming from someone who hasn't really listened to any K-pop before this movie. How it's done is an absolute bop that I've been listening to on repeat more times than I care to admit. It's the perfect way to open up the movie to show the girls fighting demons in the plane while also showing off their personalities and being stylish, showing that they are warrior women, but still fabulous. Not to mention that it has some of the best fight choreography in the movie. This is honestly my second favorite song. What's my favorite? You'll find that out when we get to it. Golden is another personal favorite. First of all, those vocals are absolutely heavenly. I love how it's a song that shows how these girls are able to be themselves now that they found each other and formed their own family. Plus how the music video is absolutely stellar and shows off each of the girls' individual journeys and struggles while still showing how fabulous they are. Plus how Rumi ends up struggling to hit the high notes at first because the song is about living your truth and being your authentic self, but she's not doing that. It's perfect musical storytelling. When she's embraced herself more later in the film is when she's actually able to hit it. I just love it. Soda Pop is honestly my least favorite song of the film because it's just brainless fluff, but that's kind of the point. The Saja boys aren't trying to say anything deep like the girls are, and are just trying to steal their fans with an earworm. This is absolutely accurate to what the music industry is like in general. Women have to constantly reinvent the wheel to get attention, but men can just do the same mediocre slop over and over again. But I will admit the song is absolutely catchy and gets stuck in your head. Not to mention the dancing is fantastic with some gorgeous visuals. Takedown is an absolute banger and a song that's perfect when you're in a bad mood to get you all pumped up. Absolutely catchy with more amazing vocals and a incredible melody. One of the best songs on the soundtrack. Not much to say other than it's phenomenal and it's a perfect song if you're dealing with some Free is also a great song, but it's not among one of my favorites simply because the others are more memorable. But this is definitely a great way of showing the connection that Rumi and Gino have, and how knowing each other has helped them grow as a person. Plus, those vocals are just heavenly, and their voices blend together perfectly, not to mention some stunning visuals. Your Idol is a song that plays when it seems like the villains have won and defeated the heroes, and I love how it's a lot darker than Soda Pop. It still fits with the K-pop style of the other songs, but it has more of a dark and sinister vibe to it. You definitely feel the demonic vibes of the song, and I love it for that, as well as having some of the most gorgeous visuals in the film and some great choreography. But then we get to the best song in the entire film, What It Sounds Like. Rumi appears defeated and things feel hopeless, but she's still willing to fight, and the girls make up after their fallout because their friendship is stronger than anything Gima could throw at them. The song has gorgeous singing, a stellar melody, phenomenal visuals, and gives all the right emotions. My wife and I both cried during this song, which as you can tell, is hard to do when you live underwater. I love how Rumi accepts her demon half and her patterns get less demonic with its coloring and show that she's not defined by them, but they are a part of her. This song shows what true cinema feels like, and I hate that I didn't get to experience this in theaters due to the movie going straight to streaming. This made me feel the same emotions that I did from Disney soundtracks I grew up with. Truly a work of art, and be prepared to have tissues on hand when you watch this scene. So yeah, the soundtrack is an absolute home run, but we all knew that, and maybe now I need to check out other K-pop artists. Let me know some of your recommendations in the comments. My wife said that this soundtrack is what Descendants would have sounded like if it was actually good, to which I say, don't compare this masterpiece with that absolute seahorse. That is the Descendants franchise, and while I still prefer Broadway-style musicals, this is still an excellent musical with songs that are truly phenomenal, not to mention doing better than the musicals Disney's been putting out lately. If you can tell, I'm absolutely in love with K-pop Demon Hunters. When I had seen all the attention it was getting online, I was in disbelief because of how it was such a strange concept, but this is proof that we shouldn't judge a film by just how niche its concept is, because this is truly one of the best animated films in recent years. It's something I can declare as an instant classic that I'm sure people will constantly be going back to watch for years to come. There is talks of a franchise with sequels and maybe a TV series, which I am all for. But there is also talk for a stage musical, which I don't think is a good idea. And of course, talks of a live-action remake, which is a horrible idea. Just let things stay animated, Hollywood. But either way, this movie is a masterpiece that I can't recommend enough. It's proof that original ideas can be successful, which Hollywood seems to have forgotten about. So for Pixar claiming that Elio failed because people don't show up for original ideas, did we really need to be specific and say good original projects? Does it have its flaws? Yes, but it's honestly a film that's a must-watch, especially if you've been missing vintage Pixar, because it gives the same vibe as that. Yes, it's really that good. And those were my thoughts on K-pop Demon Hunters. So what did you guys think? Do you agree with what I said? What are your thoughts on K-pop Demon Hunters? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to help my channel take off so I can do this as a full-time job, which I would really appreciate. You can also check out my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Mermaid from Under the Sea.